This is Chris Kelly for LocalandLocal.com with just a few tips on exercise selection for both accumulation and strength building when it comes to building muscle. Now when we're talking about these two things, the concept here is alternating between periods of volume where we're accumulating volume. Each week we want to add a little bit more on as the method of stimulus to encourage muscle growth, as opposed to periods of intensity where we're working more on maximal strength, the volume drops off a little bit. In our article we talk about alternating these two periods every 3 to 4 weeks is a great way to forego plateaus and get both work on periods of strength which transfer over to the ability to lift higher amounts of moderate weight to really cause our muscles to grow and develop. And with that said, the criteria here is exercise selection. When we're thinking about this, we've got to choose the appropriate exercises to get the right response. So when we're talking about rep ranges, when we're talking about volume, that's anywhere from 8+ reps. When we're talking about strength, that's anywhere below that number. All right, and we just want to choose the exercises that we have at hand in order to do so. What I'm going to do is give you a couple examples of these kinds of exercises and how they change. For a beginner, when we're talking about pushing movements, something like a push-up is going to be very difficult. On the floor, you're probably not going to be able to get more than 6 to 8 reps. Therefore, a push-up in that scenario would be a strength exercise. For beginners, generally, we will start out accumulation phases with what we call a band chest press. What I have here is just a band looped around, a rack, or just something that you can utilize to kind of connect to here. I'm coming into this stance, and I'm just performing 8+ reps on each side. Okay, generally, the client will be able to get a pretty good number here, so I'll have them switch legs and do the other side. We would keep that in their phase for a period maybe of 3 to 4 weeks, and then move on to something like a push-up, maybe on a step. Come all the way down to the bottom, explode up, lower slowly, pause. And the idea is to get full depth. With that, you'll see a lot of people doing half push-ups. We want to get all the way down, explode up, and get that authentic strength off the floor that allows you to progress. As you go along in subsequent strength phases, maybe in the next month that you work on strength, you can progress the push-up to the ground. Finally, progressing the push-up with the feet elevated, at which point the push-up becomes your accumulation exercise. So once you're able to do maybe more than 8 reps with your feet in a box, then the push-up is something that you would throw into your strength phase with your accumulation phase with different push-up variations, like something like a push-up with shoulder tap, push-up with a forward reach. You can even complex push-ups together where you do several variations back to back. Great way to overlay the chest. By the same token, we move on for our strength portion to something like a floor dumbbell press, where I've got 2 dumbbells here, I'm supported by the floor, and I'm pressing up and down. The beauty of this is, because the floor is limiting my range of motion here, it's allowing me to press heavier weight, and I could go all the way up to maybe 100 pounds in each hand, depending on what your gym has. But that's an example of something that, over a period of months, you can increasingly progress the resistance. With the push-up, that's really not the case, because we hit a barrier once we get our feet off the box, or even if you're putting a plate on your back, there's only so much you can do with that. So, be smart about that. Some examples for pulling movements in the very beginning would be a bodyweight row. For a strength movement, I could start into a barbell. My knees would be bent here, pushing my hips up into the air and pulling my chest to the bar. In subsequent phases, I could straighten my legs out to make it a little harder, and then put my feet on a box to make it even harder. And finally, I could move to something like a 1-arm row, with a dumbbell. And again, this is something that you could weight up over a period of months. Finally, for legs, if you're doing a squat, for example, you could start out with something like a bodyweight squat, move to a jump squat, and finally, you can move to a dumbbell front squat, maybe up to 50 pounds in each hand, moving to a barbell squat thereafter. But the point is, you're able to increasingly up the resistance. These are not things that are going to be limited by the equipment that you have available to you. And you know, you just use what is around. So those are a couple creative solutions that you can utilize, and that is your strength progression.